at 7:01 p.m. Acknowledgement of country. Town of Walkerville would like to acknowledge the Kaurna people as the traditional custodians of the land we are meeting on today and respect their spiritual relationship with their country. We recognise the many generations of stewardship the Kaurna people have provided to this land and respect that their cultural heritage and beliefs are as important today as they were for their ancestors. Present we have Mayor Melissa Jones, Deputy Mayor Liz Trotter, Councillor Allinson, Councillor Core, Councillor Nenke, Councillor Rip and Councillor Vanstone. Staff in attendance, we have the Acting Chief Executive Officer, the Group Manager Assets and Infrastructure, Group Manager Corporate Services, Group Manager Public Relations and Community Services and Council Secretariat. We've received apologies from Councillor Williams and Councillor Zeppel. Do any councillors have any leave of absences coming up? There are none. Confirmation of the minutes. This is a motion to confirm the minutes of the ordinary council meeting held on the 28th of November 2022.
I moved that way just with the exception that we did have an email going around to note that Liz Councillor Trotter or Deputy Mayor Trotter was in attendance. So I'll move, but with that adjustment.
Yes. Someone to second that?
No, I'll second.
Thank you. That is carried. Do any councillors have a declaration of interest?
Now, Your Worship, as members will see, there is a declaration of interest form placed in front of you. It's up to the elected members if they choose to complete it on the basis that the allowance and benefit policy is being passed, which obviously confers a benefit on elected members. So it's completely up to you if you wish to complete it.
Well, look, I'll just say, I mean, I know I haven't, previous councillors have done that, but I can see the point you're raising. I'll just declare a general interest. What item number was that one? It was 14.2.1 elected member allowance and benefit policy. I'll just declare a general interest, but as it's a council policy, we're simply adopting as part of routine business, even though there will be a financial benefit. I will be staying in the meeting and voting on the item. I'm assuming that'll be the same for everybody.
Well, I think that applies to everybody. So, okay.
If that be the case, Your Worship, if everyone could please have their forms completed and returned by the end of the session tonight.
I'll just go et al. At the end.
Yeah. Okay. There are no deputations, representations or presentations. There are no petitions. Moving on to the Mayor's Diary, would someone move the Mayor's Diary as presented on the agenda? Councillor Trotter, is there a seconder? Councillor Rick, thank you.
Just in seconding, I will acknowledge the events you've been to and thank you for obviously attending those school events and everything, so seeing that on there.
Yeah, thank you. There are no reports from elected members having attended training.
Sorry,
I think you
we
did vote.
just have to vote on the...
Oh, sorry.
Yeah, sorry.
Those
Yeah.
in favour.
Please, if you're in favour of the passing of the Mayor's Diary.
Yep.
Yes. Carried. No reports from elected members. There are no reports from elected members having attended subsidiary board meetings. There are no questions from the gallery as at 12 o'clock p.m. today.
Your Worship, sorry, if I can just go back to the confirmation of the minutes. Did we get a motion for everybody to carry that? Danielle? We did vote? Okay, thank you.
Are there any questions without notice? No? There are no questions on notice? Motions without notice? Councillor Trotter.
In the interest of a new council, I felt it was important, and I forwarded to Scott the. I believe that there should be an amendment because of COVID and other related issues, that we look at an electronic version, an amendment maybe to the Code of Practice, so we can have our informal and gatherings and committee meetings when required, by electronic means. I believe this is a really important motion to bring under the current circumstances we're in, to ensure that everyone has the ability to be in the room or in some form at the time, if possible.
Will someone move that?
Second.
Second.
Oh, okay.
Second.
So Councillor Trotter moved it, Councillor Allenson seconded it. Does anyone have any questions or comments on that?
Yeah, I'd just like to say, if possible, Mayor, and thank you to the Deputy Mayor for bringing this motion to us and also giving it to us ahead of time on email so we could read it before the meeting. I'm absolutely, as I've stated to the Deputy Mayor, generally supportive of this, and I believe people should be able to participate by electronic means if away for work due to illness, family commitments. Where possible, however, I do believe that people should attend in person. I mean, that's, to me, I think it's fundamental, but provisions should allow for electronic participation at certain times. And I also think, I won't do it in this motion, but I think in future it'd be a good idea for our council to actually advocate to the state government that these type of provisions should be in place in general for full council meetings as well. Again, if people are away for work due to illness, a classic case in point, Councillor Williams could have participated tonight if he was able to, if he was still well enough, but he would have at least had the opportunity. And I think that in today's day and age, we should, with people being away for work, be allowed to participate in the main meetings, but I'll leave that for a future motion if someone wants to bring that.
Anyone else?
I have one motion without notice.
Oh, hold
no,
on.
we're still...
Yeah.
In a minute, we'll just
We're
vote
doing
on
this
this one
motion.
first.
Yeah.
So we'll vote on that one. All those in favour? That's carried. Thank you. Councillor
Yeah.
Moore.
I have a motion with no notice. I am sure that you are familiar with the Will Park Primary School. It's located on Ascot Avenue. I live across the road to that school. It's very busy road. I can see lots of students coming around the corner of the road, and they are not safe on that side because they have a long queue to wait for the bus. Sometimes they cannot hold to go to the car park properly and safely. So I would recommend, if everyone is agreed, to make install fencing around that area to that school. I've spoken to the members of the school as well. They are quite happy if we can install fencing for the safety of the school. I think it's very, very appropriate for them, for the safety.
Can I just
Is it-
more so probably a point of order, but I just need to know what proposed wording of the motion is from Councillor Kaur, just so we can see it, because I know you made a statement. I just want to know what the wording will be.
Can I also just add, I think,
Yeah.
my sentence, arterial road, so it'd be...
That's exactly what I was coming
I was
to.
going to say, we could
Yeah.
shape it around maybe advocating for that potentially,
Mm.
if we did.
Yeah.
I don't know. James, would you have some thoughts on that?
Through your worship,
Yeah, yeah.
we could potentially write to the Department of Transport and also Vale Park Primary School and see in particular what their pain points are and what we might be able to either assist the department with or assist the school with. So that's probably the best.
Your Worship, as Councillor Ninki pointed out, it is a main arterial road, so it is and the property of the school would fall within the ownership of the Department for Education. So while I believe I agree with both the group manager and Councillor Ninki that we would be effectively a go-between rather than actually spending any money on infrastructure. So Councillor Kaur, if you're happy with
I think it is an issue,
pedestrians in an council rights potential options
Yeah.
regarding the installation of safety fencing for pedestrians in and around school access points.
Yeah. Because that road is very, very busy road.
Yeah.
The big vehicle moving around the corner on the road all the time, and the kids, they are not safe. They are younger kids, they're primary going school kids. They jump to the to the road area. So there should be fencing to protect them.
But this motion will definitely allow us to write to the state governments,
Yeah.
both the departments, and attempt to liaise with them and see what they may be able to implement in the next
Yeah.
year.
Through your worship, just one question: is it relating to the traffic around the traffic signals, or?
It's just around the area of the primary school.
Yep.
Not beyond that point, because so many kids are running and playing and walking on that area.
Yeah.
They are safe when the people and the parents are there, but physically when no one is there, like they are having queue and going to the bus tour or something like that, it's a long queue. The
Okay.
kids
Yeah.
get cranky or
Yeah.
they jump over to the busier road. So it should be safer for them, and it's good for us to make our
So a fence along the
Just-
edge of the footpath.
just to
on
the
road
footpath.
side.
Yeah.
Behind the curb. Yeah.
Yeah.
No
Yeah.
problems. Thank you.
Okay.
Happy to second it.
that. Thank you.
And I'll echo it definitely is a safety concern, so happy to support
Yeah.
your motion there. And given it is a debt road, advocacy can be just as important. So I'm happy to do that.
Yeah.
Support that.
Thank you.
Okay, all those in favour? Thank you, that's carried.
Before we move on, well, we may have moved on, but is there any conflicts that need to be raised just due to Councillor Corr's residence in the vicinity, or is that okay because it's just related to a
No,
school in the
through your worship, the fact that Councillor Corr is a resident and an elected member, she's just representing the voices of the community, so no conflict
Yeah,
required.
fantastic.
I think it was on the same, it's a fair question because it was on the same street. Could be.
Okay, there was a third motion without notice.
If I will, can I? Oops.
Sorry, so just through the chair, I've got the wording that you've just
Oh,
emailed
thank
through
you.
to me.
Thank
Do you want me
you,
to
yeah.
paste that in here now?
I'll just
Just
speak quickly. I've significantly amended it, but before we even vote on it last year from CEO on, all I'm trying to do now is just like in our workshop, just to formalise it, that we have a workshop early January, or mid-January, whatever it might be, to I suppose it's the 10-year financial plan.
The LTFP, yes.
The whole long-term financial plan for the 10 years. I'm trying to remove, in our wording, I'm trying to remove the year one, which is, or current year, I should say,
Mhm.
year one of the plan, current year. But I suppose the meaning behind this is really to give league members an understanding of what projects are coming up and really concentrating on a debt ceiling and trying to work out how we can manage what. It is a new council, we should have the opportunity to have, to form our own, I suppose, 4-year plan, let alone 10-year plan, but to sort of get some traction on where we want to go, and we should be doing that early as a group. And so please have a read of that, and it's more about the financial ramifications and risk. Did I put that in there?
Yes, second point to Councillor.
Yeah, and risk, just so we can have some sort of weighting criteria around
Future projects.
And I suppose I'm looking from next financial year and onwards. So anyway, open for debate to start with, and if you want to support it, and based on that sort of language.
Councillor Nanki, reading that in that format, I don't have too much of an issue with, because it's designed to hold a briefing session to inform the elected members about the way moving forward. As far as a workshop in early January, can you define early January? I know we have one on the 12th already scheduled, but that particular one is jam-packed, so I believe I think we sent around to save the date for the 19th. If you're fine with the 19th, we will present into that workshop there, and we can discuss the LTFP and projects, keeping in mind that obviously any actual decision-making process for projects moving forward from year 2 onwards goes through the budget review process.
I respect that, absolutely. Yeah, I'm going through that.
Currently, of course,
but yeah, so, and yeah, if everybody else is happy with the 19th as well, before I move that. So yeah, I suppose in a way we're just forming a motion on the fly here a little bit, but yeah.
And so what we had discussed earlier was having also the potential to look at this financial year. So how does that sit with this?
Well, I suppose
to go back to the original one, not cleaning it up, but for the CEO, look, the way I tried to word the original one was, I tried to add some grip around it on the fact that what was, I've just lost it actually, where is it? That was committed through the, where is it? Not physically mentioned on it, has been committed by purchase order or by existing tender, and maybe I should put in your annual business plan and budget as well, just to show that, because obviously we have been out for consultation on that. So that would be it, but I mean, on reflection, I mean, I have actually, I mean, I'm not going to get into debate about it, but I suppose what have we actually, what other, I suppose, let's keep it simple, what are the projects we still to do? I mean, I had a look at our capital program coming up, what are we still, outside of roads and footpaths, which I'm a massive advocate for, keeping up that renewal, and that's based on, you know, asset management principles. But like, I suppose upgrades are probably the one I'm more looking at, and it's capital new and capital upgrades. What have we got committed this year that we've actually, or committed by way of, you know, survey to, or engagement to the community? What have we got?
So, Your Worship, all of that is, as you said, outlined in the financial report as attachment B, C, as far as what the projects are, the tracking the progress where they currently stand. So that's provided to Council on a monthly basis.
Yes, council report you're talking.
Council report, the monthly financial report.
Attachment B, yeah.
So with regards to amending any expenditure for the current year, the annual business plan and budget process has already been completed, endorsed by the Community Council, the Audit Committee, etc. So those funds are effectively locked and loaded, and
yeah, so it's the budget, because that's what I was trying to work out. So in the annual business plan and budget, we haven't actually listed roads and footpaths that we'll be doing, but we've just put the annual expenditure.
Correct, but the roads, but throughout the process of the budget planning process, that information was disclosed. So we can potentially look to provide some more detailed information as far as those are concerned at the budget workshop.
But again, it's not the roads and footpaths I'm so concerned about, because that's asset renewal. What I'm, I suppose, concentrating on is upgraded new, particularly new, capital new. What are we bringing on to council? It's going to add depreciation and operating costs and
worship. So roads and footpaths do make up the majority of our spend this financial year. There is some minor spends in Ascot Avenue streetscape upgrade near the mural that's been painted there. I think there's approximately 70,000 there.
And that was part of the original.
Yeah, so that was part of the original capital budget.
That was part of the engagement process.
I believe so.
Yes.
So yeah, it would be a matter of going through those, I guess, projects that haven't been commenced yet, and seeing where that might land. But
Vicky, perhaps you'd be able to correct me if I'm incorrect, but 39 Smith, Walkerville Local Redevelopment and Levi the only new, is that correct?
What was the Levi over?
That was Eden, so that was deferred from previous year. That was deferred through to this year, or was it next, I believe?
Through next year.
Next year.
So where would we be at as far as planning with the Eden currently? Master plan?
Through your worship, that detailed design's been completed. We haven't gone to market for construction yet.
I suppose, and that's the feeling around this motion. We'd like you to sort of hold off until we've had that briefing session, because I mean, we can still rescind that and bring it back for a later date, I believe.
Well, rescinding, so the issue that we have, because it's already been confirmed by budget, there's a very slippery slope, I suppose, with regard to this year's budget. As far as rescinding, if we're rescinding any projects, you are in fact rescinding the annual budget.
So how about rescinding in the way that we're deferring it?
Deferring is different. I like that word much better. That's a different kettle of fish. So if there is a valid reason and council determined to do so, to defer a project to a later stage, it can be done so, but council are still obligated to advise the community exactly as to why that is occurring, because as all the projects have been approved for this financial year, Once that resolution passed, that became a delegated authority to the CEO to deliver upon that project. So it's my obligation to deliver that in the financial year without council's ability to interfere with that unless there's a deferral motion for a valid reason.
Maintaining communication here.
Mhm.
I'll tell you my intention right now.
Mhm.
That I'll write, I mean, once we've had this workshop in January, I'd be looking, depending on what was said, of course, and what the feeling is across the board here, but if the general feeling is that maybe that is impacting us financially, and we might be better to defer it later, I will take it upon myself to bring a motion to defer that to a future year.
Any specific project or just?
Oh no, the Eden. I think that's the main thing. I think that's a good couple of hundred thousand.
306,000, I believe.
Right, so there is something there that we can try to grab hold of. Again, it's this depreciation and operating costs that we bring onto ourselves as well. And also, obviously, the capital does impact our debt ceiling. So we're just trying to work towards
fiscally
a good
responsible.
outcome. Correct. Okay, so if we can take it upon yourself not to sign any tenders or award the works just yet, it'd be let's just try and communicate that through. Okay. So if we can, unless you want me to put that in the motion, but I'm happy to leave it as is.
No, I think that's probably the best way to leave it as it currently is at the moment. It's not specific, which could prove problematic.
No, fair enough. Okay.
Your Worship, with regards to that wording, I'm comfortable with that content.
Okay, is there a seconder?
I will second it.
Thank you, Councillor Trotter. Does anyone have any comments or questions on that?
Only one I would have for consideration for the mover and the seconder is changing the word prioritise projects with consideration to something like considering projects, because we're not making decisions formally here. So I think, because prioritising is more of a definitive sort of word or wording, so if it said something like
review, maybe?
Review projects, consider, review I think is more of a comfortable word, I think. Because prioritise is more, I read that as definitive, we're doing that, whereas we can't make
predetermining an outcome for something.
Accept that.
Thank you.
I would just say that I've seconded the view it's going to the 19th for the workshop to probably disclose a little bit more on those projects and see where we sit in that space.
Your Worship, keeping in mind that that would not include recurrent projects.
Yeah.
Is that correct? Yes. So the ones that need to be done to maintain the city and the township would be excluded from that process, and we would discuss that in the evening.
Yeah, and again, so that's where I was coming from a renew. And also, if there's any emergency works, obviously we had a storm on the roof, or insurance probably covers that. I don't know, but it's I mean, within reason, let's be financially responsible.
Mm-hmm.
Thank you.
Okay, any other comments, questions? Okay, we'll vote on that. All those in favour? That's carried. Any other motions without notice? Okay, there are no motions on notice. There are no strategy reports requiring decision of council. So 14.2 is elected members' allowances and benefits policy. Is anyone willing to move that?
I'll move.
Thank you, Councillor Vanstone, and second it. Thank you, Councillor Nenke. Any questions, comments? We'll vote on that. All those in favour? Thank you, that's carried. Operational council meeting procedures. Does anyone wish to move that?
I'll move it.
Thank you, Councillor Vanstone, and second?
Second.
Councillor Ritt. Anyone with any comments or questions? We'll vote. All those in favour? Thank you, that's carried. Moving on to the audit committee membership. We received nominations from Councillor Stephen Ripp and Councillor the Deputy Mayor Liz Trotter as members of that committee, and a nomination from Councillor Allinson as a proxy member of that committee. So, what is the motion here? You've got, what's the italics?
So through your worship, so the recommendation is to appoint Councillor Ripp and the Deputy Mayor Trotter to the board for a term of 4 years, as well as appointing Councillor Allinson for a period of 2 years as proxy member. Also a requirement to change the terms of reference to reflect a staggering, I believe it is, of the independent members, so that there's continuity across the board, across council terms, because at this present time, the way that the terms of reference are set up is that the elected members are appointed at the same time as independent members, which proves problematic at the point of a new council because everybody is fresh. So the recommendation there is that the appointment of the independent members be staggered, so they will be appointed 2 years into a council term, so that they continue over 2 years into the new term for continuity purposes. Further to that, on that basis, the current chair, Mr. Ross Haslan, and Mr. Colin Scarlett, the independent member, their terms be extended by, I believe it's 6 months, 12 months, so as to align with that staggered point.
Yeah, that makes sense.
Okay. Will someone move that motion? Thank you, Councillor Vanstone. Second it, Councillor Trotter.
Yeah, you can, because there's no conflict because there's no financial thing. It's fine.
All those in favour? Thank you. That's carried.
Thank you.
The CEO Performance Review Committee membership. We received nominations from Councillor Allinson and Councillor Ripp to that committee, with the resolution to amend section 5.2 of those terms of reference.
Yeah, Your Worship, would you like me to speak to that? So in the past, appointment to the CEO Performance Review Committee for elected members has been very different. Some years it's been a 4-year term, some years it's a 1, some years it's a 2. I'm making the recommendation that appointment be for a period of 2 years. That way it will allow for additional elected members to nominate for the position on the committee in the future should they wish to do so.
Makes sense.
Councillor Ninky.
No, look, I personally want to amend that wording if I can now. Yep. So we only have to have the 2, or can we have 3?
That will come down, Your Worship, that will come down to council passing a resolution to change the terms of reference to include a 3rd member, because on the CEO Performance Review Committee, Her Worship the Mayor and the Deputy Mayor are already automatically appointed to the panel.
So then it will be 4?
It will be 4 plus an independent advisor.
Does the advisor have any sort of voting rights?
No, the advisory only.
Okay. So can I add a 3rd member to this then, that we include James Williams? And I'm doing so just purely because he's been, this is what, 3rd or 4th term. I think he's got a good, he's been part of the process previously. And
Did he nominate?
No, Your Worship, if I could speak to that, Councillor Ninky, I emulate your sentiment that Councillor Williams has been on the CEO Performance Review Board before. Councillor Williams unfortunately missed the nominations for this, so for procedural fairness, nominations and voting tonight is for the people that have nominated in accordance with the time frame.
what was the time frame? Sorry.
12 p.m. today.
He did nominate, but
He did nominate, but it was
late.
outside.
There are other people in that situation which we'll get to.
So the recommended for procedural fairness, the recommendation would be that the motion pass as it was recommended and the amendment to the terms of reference accordingly. Should council wish to make a change to the terms of reference outside of that recommendation, that would be strongly advised. For the notion of procedural fairness, should any of the further amendments be made to include other members that did not submit in time, I will be required to seek legal advice on that matter.
So So when's the first committee meeting for this?
I don't believe a committee meeting has been set yet, but it will likely be early January.
All right. Could we table this for the January meeting? So we can have a look at this.
Your Worship, I would recommend against that because you're about to go through a recruitment process for the CEO, of which the CEO Performance Review Committee must be established to oversee that process.
So when's that going to start?
There will be a report coming into the Chamber in January outlining that process. So my recommendation again would be to pass the motion as it would, or the recommendation as presented, and then if you wish to make a change to that recommendation or the terms of reference of the committee, it should be done so in a separate motion in January.
All right. So just on the process of fairness, I'm not removing anyone or trying to. I'm adding an additional member to make the number odd.
I would have no issue with that at all, Councillor Nanki. If you were to resolve to amend point 3, perhaps would be, and further amends the terms of reference to include a 5th member of council to sit upon the CEO Performance Review Committee.
Okay. So then that can still come back to Chamber once the committee has established. We can still we can add a further member.
That would be correct.
Okay.
Yes.
Well, that's probably the most likely scenario then. So let's proceed with that.
Provided all other parties and nominees are comfortable with that resolution.
And just on that as well, anyone else can also put their name up. At that time, we can go through the same process. Look, just from my own personal experience, and having been a member of a number of councils, just like Councillor Rep, I've seen the process a few times. I think experience over a long term on council does aid the process. Having a strong understanding of projects that have been and haven't, still to be completed. And also understanding, just general administration. We've had quite a turnover of staff recently. I think we'd have Councillor Williams would certainly add a historical component to this as well. So anyway, that's well, I'd like to move that, and we will put it to the vote.
Okay, someone second that? Councillor Trotter? Any questions or comments regarding that?
So if I can just check, so that's third point is just amending the terms of reference, and consideration for that will come back later?
So once the terms of reference, from my understanding, once the terms of reference have been, if they've supported, then will they be? Is that actually
that motion right there changes the terms of reference to increase from 4 to 5.
Yeah, and we can bring that back to.
And you look at the 5th and next nomination later. Okay.
Yeah.
Well,
sorry, go ahead. And this means that, in fairness, that anyone here
can nominate.
could
Yeah.
nominate.
Mm-hmm.
yeah, I'm comfortable with that.
Yeah. Anyone else? Okay, we'll vote on that. All those in favour? Thank you, it's carried. Regarding the council assessment panel, a nomination was received, but it was received late, so not accepted. So we have option 2.
Your Worship, option B. So currently the CAP is comprised by 5 members, one being an elected member of council. We have a deputy member who is a professional within the industry. He serves as a deputy and is called upon as and when required for the committee as a proxy for want of a better term. As in the absence of a nomination for the first point, the recommendation B is to appoint Mr. Julian Rutt to the board for an interim period. The term I put 24 months, but that is at the discretion of council.
Can we amend?
Are you moving this?
No. I'm just asking a question.
You can just move a variation because there's no motion on the floor yet, so you can just move it something.
You can raise a question though.
Yeah, can I just have a question first?
Yeah.
Your Worship, I'm terribly sorry, elected members, just as a matter of decorum, when you're asking a question, you should reference through Your Worship.
Okay. Your Worship. Can I ask, what is the minimum amount of the minimum term that we can choose
Look, that would come down to the elected body. For a matter of continuity, I wouldn't suggest a 1 month, 2 month, 3 month sort of time frame. I think if a minimum to the end of the financial year would be fair and reasonable to allow for that process. But again, that comes down to council's decision because we will have to go through a nomination process again.
Thank you.
Can we reopen the nomination process?
Through a resolution of council, yes, but in the meantime, we still need to ensure that there is a person in that seat because CAP meetings are still continuing at this present time.
And the first CAP meeting is the 23rd of January.
I believe that is correct, isn't that Michael?
The schedule for them.
Scheduled, yes.
Is it possible to nominate a member as motion now?
You could do if council wished to do so, but it comes down to that process of procedural fairness that I spoke about before. It seems to be that there was a strict and specific timeframe that I called for nominations, and no one nominated for this particular panel within that timeframe. So it would effectively, by default, go to the second option. If council were to go down that path, I would be getting legal advice to obtain a position.
I will move option 1 and place Councillor John Zeppel as it was John that put his hand up, was it? Yeah. And I respect procedural fairness. However, I've been on the CAP previously, and I'm hugely aware of the need to have a resident or an elected member on the panel. I know things have changed with the design, the Resi Code, etc. However, it's all local government, council should have at least one member of its elected board representative on the panel. We have some large projects coming up, and I know more than Scotty's Corner and the Buckingham Arms. I think we definitely need a voice. It's a hard gig anyway with independence because subject to interpretation of planning principles. They always take the weighted impact, and there's too many of those arguments for my liking, and you always end up with something that's well beyond the character that I think we would require in this council, or most elected members would support. So at the last council, I know that has very little relevance. However, there were always questions about how does St Peter's and Northern Park hold their character. We've seen our own character emerge over time within Walkerville. Having a complete independent board is just going to aid that whole effect. So I think we'd be very careful on this, and we test the waters. We go back to option 1, and we make sure that we've got a Walkerville person, a Walkerville council person, albeit Gilberton, on the board. So
Your Worship, Councillor Lenke, I completely sympathise with the fact that you wish to have an elected member on the board, and we've spoken about this in the past as well, particularly with regards to East Waste and Era Water. So while the sentiment is there, I will emulate and reiterate that for the purpose of procedural fairness, I think my recommendation to proceed with B and consider this at a later stage is probably more fair and reasonable. But if that's a decision of council, that's a decision of council. However, the minutes will note that the motion was passed against the advice of administration.
I'm willing to wear that.
Can I just ask a quick
But just on that, the only other option, and I'm happy for anyone else to consider it, would be to put in for a term of 2 months only. But I feel that would be completely wasting Jenny Rutt's time. So I think just to be sometimes you just throw the pros, the rule book out is what is the most sensible approach would be to we have an elected member that is actually willing to sit on this position. We, for the sake of a couple of hours, we're going to shut him out. I just think it's borderline ludicrous.
Oh, sorry, can I just ask a question? Correct me if I'm wrong, through Your Worship. you will have to seek, that the CEO, if you stated, you might have to seek some legal advice
Correct.
to this. Can I just have an indication of the likely cost of that, if that's acceptable to state now? And if it's going to be a cost to seek that advice, would we simply be better to call maybe a special council meeting that backs on to a meeting date where I think we've got elected member workshop and that coming up before the CAP meets? Would we better defer this so we can have a quick special council meeting to appoint the person and then avoid that legal cost? Because if we're going to have a special council meeting before the meeting, then that will avoid a legal cost.
Your Worship, I would suggest the legal cost would probably be to the tune of close to $2,000, $1,000 to $2,000 for a detailed analysis of the report, of their advice. This decision is in council's hand at this present time, keeping in mind that if their legal advice comes back that there was an error in the motion, this motion will need to be rescinded and then a proper motion put in place.
Well, I'll ask a follow-up question. Would the administration be prepared to have a quick special council meeting that backs on to a elected member workshop before the first CAP meeting? So then that way the councillor who's nominated can be appointed, avoids the legal costs, and we get on with it.
The first CAP meeting is, what did we say, sorry, scheduled for the
23rd January.
January, I believe we have a council meeting on the 16th of January.
No, but our first workshop, when was our first
Workshop is on the
January.
12th. A matter of this nature could be squeezed into that particular one.
Yeah.
Do we need a workshop to discuss
No,
this?
it'd have to be a special council meeting to then move a decision, but that could back onto that.
So the 16th of January there will be a council meeting.
16th of January, but we're having a workshop on the 12th.
But we don't really need to discuss this, so we could add it to the agenda on the 16th of January.
Oh, sorry, I beg your pardon. Yeah. So I'm just thinking quickly on the fly there. I know that we haven't called for a seconder for this, but my recommendation to avoid a legal cost, or whether Councillor Nenke would be happy to change his motion, I'll let Councillor Nenke determine that.
Can I just ask one more question relating to this? If we elevated Councillor Gillian Wright, how much are we paying him per sitting?
I believe it's $350 a sitting.
So within, 7 meetings, we're at that $2,000 anyway, so let's just get the legal advice and I mean, I'm happy to take that, but just for everybody else
I just wanted to say the
that way, I
2,000
mean,
if I can.
we're going to be paying someone when technically we don't really have to, so...
Your Worship, if I could just interject again, and I'm sort of doubling up on what I said earlier and hearing what Councillor Nenke said, and doubling up there as well, and yourself, Councillor Reid. The motion at hand, option B, was to appoint Mr. Rutt for an interim period, whatever that may be.
Yeah.
Councillor, the Deputy Mayor asked the question about what would the minimum term be. I suggested a 6-month period, but there was a conversation about potentially 3. You said yourself, literally just then, that you would be happy to appoint the person for a 2-month period, and at which point this could come back into the chamber for further determination. I am of the view that that process in itself avoids legal costs and goes through the standard process of review that would allow for appointment.
As long as, I was just more how that reflects on, Gillian Wright, we think, well, we've got a gig for 2 months, but
Gillian,
if everyone's comfortable with that, I'm happy to take that approach, CEO, do it for 2 months and get our apples back in line. So.
Well, I think Councillor Ripp's approach would work as well as opening
Saves
up
money.
the nomination in...
Because we haven't got a second of yours, I don't know if you want to move that.
No, you can word it up as you wish.
All right.
Yeah.
So through the chair, are we thinking of going back to option B with an ending period in 2 months' time, or wording a motion to go to the January council meeting?
there's been a
Sorry, just for clarification.
Option A has been moved by Councillor Nenke, and I believe Councillor Rip is going to do a variation to that.
A variation that basically reflects the original first point, no elected member will be appointed, for that bit. And we have we call for a special council meeting at the end of our next workshop, or we could actually make it at the start. Call for a special council meeting.
The meeting is the regular meeting.
Yeah.
Sorry, that's right. So we'll just...
I was going to say, Councillor Rip, potentially this matter could simply just be deferred until the January meeting.
Be deferred until the January meeting of council.
16th.
of January, yeah.
Yes.
Yeah. And this matter be deferred to the council meeting on the 16th of January 2023 for and then we can call for nominations again and start another process. I'll take out that second bit, yeah, because we'll have to call for nominations again.
Do we need to say that we're going to call for nominations again?
For consideration and nominations for the position be reopened, re-advertised by the CEO. Reopened and re-advertised by the CEO.
I'm happy with that word.
Councillor Ninke, are you happy with that amendment?
Yes, I am, yes.
Anyone else? We'll vote on that. All those
Sorry,
in-
are we voting on part 1 and 2 in this, or just part 1 at this point?
This is
Part
the
1 is the
motion.
one that's currently in play at this present time, this section here.
Yeah, but in terms of part 2 for the full motion, are we only just voting on part 1 at this stage?
Only part 1. So
Okay.
so the motion was an either or. So it was either part A, appointment, or part B. So for the
Sure.
purposes of this motion, you've varied the first option. So the section part B will be defined.
Okay. All those in favour? Thank you, that's carried. Women of Walkerville Committee membership. There are 3 persons appointed by dint of their sexuality to this committee. That is myself, Deputy Mayor Liz Trotter and Councillor Corr. Then we would look to see if there's anyone who would like to amend the terms of reference of this committee.
Yeah, so if I may, Your Worship, so point 2 specifically reflects to section 5.2 of the terms of reference, which at this present time reads that the members will hold office until the conclusion of the 2022 general election. So it's simply amending 2022 to read 26.
Yeah.
I've included a subsequent provision there for elected members to make any further changes. Elected members having read the terms of reference as part of the report, should there be anything that they deem appropriate to remove or amend as part of the decision, it's up to elected members to determine to do so. And then obviously the other points are quite explanatory. We'll go through the process, appoint undertaken expressions of interest for community members to be appointed or interested parties, and then a report will come back into the committee for review of the submissions, and then back into council for appointing people to the committee.
Okay, so any amendments to the terms of reference?
Your Worship, alternately there will be a point where the committee meet and do a thorough, like all committees, will do a thorough review of their terms of reference and then make recommendations to council for adoption. So if there's nothing on the fly per se for this particular item, we can delete point 3 and that will be reviewed at a later stage.
Just before you do that, Your Worship, I'll put that something along the lines that members that would hold this office could be of male or female sex as well, just to promote that equality. I don't believe that anything in the current terms of reference state either way, but clearly by default elected members that are female hold that office.
There's also the concept of the patron in that committee. Is that something that we want to keep or remove?
Your Worship, so the patron for the committee has historically been a person of interest within the community, ex-mayors, things like that. Whether, I mean, it's a philanthropical society, whether council believe that to be a valid inclusion moving forward, that's up to council.
So who's the current patron?
Well, the current patron, or the patron whose position expired 2021, I believe it was ex-Mayor Margot Vowles. On review of all of the appointments, it looks as though the appointments expired in 2021 and then just continually carried over and holdover pattern. So ultimately, the existing members or the previous members of the committee no longer have active terms within the committee.
Right.
Your Worship, just one suggested improvement, 3.1, that members of the committee may be female. Maybe. Yes, that would bring that up.
Maybe in terms of the Mayor's worship, your comment with the patron, maybe that can be just a decision for the committee, I think. When they meet.
And recommendations to come back to the council with regards to that.
Can I just ask a general question? Is there numbers already? I mean, is everyone continuing on? There were current members, or are they all continuing on into the next?
Into the next term, your worship. So, as I just mentioned before, the current members, all of their terms expired in 2021.
Yeah.
So, for that, then they've continued up until the end of the general election. So, any continuance of their servitude on the committee would need to come from the committee, because there'll be an open expressions of interest process seeking members of the community to be appointed to that committee. So there has been no offer to the existing members to carry on because their terms have expired. So should they wish to reapply through the expressions of interest process, they can do.
Okay, so they'll be sent out obviously before the first committee meeting.
Correct.
Good question.
Okay. Sorry,
Any other questions on that? Okay, do we have a mover for this motion as it stands? Councillor Trotter. Seconder? Councillor Allinson, thank you. Any other questions or comments? We'll vote on that. All those in favour? Thank you, that's carried. The next item is the dissolution of a legacy committee, the Wesleyan Cemetery Advisory Committee. So this resolution is to dissolve that committee. Do we have a mover?
Your Worship, Councillor Necki, did you wish to say anything? Councillor Necki is I can speak to this motion, and Councillor Necki can definitely respond accordingly. So, Wesleyan Cemetery Advisory Committee has been a committee established for quite some time. Used to be the Friends of the Cemetery Committee, a volunteer group that assisted with the strategic direction of the committee previously, noting that all of their backgrounds were in cemetery operations, so they're quite knowledgeable. Over the last 3 years particularly, Councillor Necki, we've really done quite a lot of work moving the cemetery forward as far as strategy and operations are concerned, and we've gotten to a point that the operation of the cemetery has become an operational matter of council, because we know the steps that need to be taken in order to reopen the cemetery to earth burial. So at this was the second time this matter was discussed within the committee, and the committee resolved to make the recommendation to council to dissolve the committee of the view that they are no longer of function, I suppose. Councillor Necki, did you wish to?
Yeah, no, look, I think it's been a valuable committee. However, as CEO's just stated, it has hit its point, I suppose. But we do have there's a future of work still to beyond the committee. It's going to have some good outcomes. But I'm just trying to reflect back, because Councillor Williams did contact me on a few points. I'm just trying to understand what he was actually looking for here. I think he said, I agree that there is no real point for the committee for the moment. Process is having to follow regarding the current case as well. So I'm not sure where he's going with that, but I think, look, I'm generally happy.
Yeah, so where he's going, I can't speak for him, but I can speak to what you've just mentioned there. So there is a statutory process involved in reopening the cemetery for earth burials, which is an advertisement period of 2 years. We need to, first of all, completely digitise and clean all of the data, cross-reference all our burial information with the information of state records. That is expected to be completed. I believe the last feedback was December, was by the end of this month, and then we would open that advertisement process in early next year. I think it was March was the scheduled first ad, and then we go through the 2-year process. Once that process has been completed, and some existing lessees of sites may choose to re-license those sites, then we can start to look at reusing the earth for reburials.
Will there be future updates coming back to council?
Absolutely. So there's a business case that's been drafted, but we had to get through that legislative process first.
So look, I'm happy to move this. I think it's
Thank you. Councillor Necki, a seconder. Councillor Core. Any other questions or comments? All those in favour? Thank you, that's carried. Next item is the dissolution of a legacy committee, the Strategic Planning and Development Policy Committee.
Your Worship, if I may speak to this one prior to it going to the vote and moving and seconding. So the SPDPC was established under the Development Act 1993, which is of course now repealed. So this committee effectively has no statutory authority or standing to advise council accordingly. The recommendation moving forward would be to formally and officially dissolve this committee because it has no standing for council anymore, and because it's not a legislative body or governed by legislation, administration cannot back them up effectively or provide administration to the committee itself. So the recommendation is that they be dissolved, and should council choose to establish a similar committee at a future date, it would be done so under section 41 of the Local Government Act. Danielle, Council Secretary, I've just noticed that that motion is incorrect. It should then get rid of section 41 committee.
Will someone move that?
Yeah.
Councillor Allenson, seconder.
Yeah.
Councillor Ripp. Any other comments?
I think there could be some value in bringing a committee together in the future, but probably just looking at strategic planning. It is interesting that given the Act did change, and obviously that's the outcome of the design code coming in effectively. I've been a member of this when I was at Campbelltown, and any development plan amendment review would come in. It was always great to sit around and discuss those matters. Obviously the whole planning law's changed now, but we do again have some big projects coming up. I think it will be valuable to have a committee formed to review whatever's happening in that space. So yeah, look, I know there's been some interest, especially through the election process, talks around the Scotty's Corner. I think it'd be valuable to bring a committee up in the future. So, but that's beyond this. So,
anyone else? We'll vote on that. All those in favour? Thank you, it's carried. Next item is the Community Fund application from the Adelaide Male Voice Choir, which seeks to waive the security fees of $218 for their 2023 fringe performance in the Town Hall. Any questions on that? Can we have a mover?
Oh, sorry.
Thank you.
No, you were first.
Councillor Trotter, seconder. Councillor Ripp. Anyone else? I'll vote on that. All those in favour? Thank you, that's carried.
Liz, that was like a Melbourne Cup photo finish, I reckon.
Okay, subsidiaries. We received a nomination from James Nenke and James Allenson as members of the Eastern Health Authority Board.
Your Worship, with respect to the motion itself, I've provided option 1 and 2 specifically on duration of times. Option 1 outlines a 12, and it goes to the conversations we've had previously with elected members about allowing other elected members the opportunity to be elected to these boards throughout the course of the term. So option 1 is a 12-month period, option 2 is a 24-month period. Completely at council's discretion. I do note that a couple of the previous matters tonight were for a 24-month period, so if that's the consistent approach that council wished to take, that would be recommended.
Can I just double check, if I ask a question, Your Worship, when nominations are called, was there a time frame for that one specified? When people nominated, or that wasn't a time?
As far as the time frame for particular appointments, no. So appointment is based on, or the options are based on whatever's written in the respective charter or terms of reference of that committee.
Yeah.
And some, I think this particular one, EHARD calls for a specific time that is appointed by council, which is why.
Okay. Yeah. Unless others want to jump in, I'll move for option 2 for 24 months, just to be consistent with the other ones that have been moved tonight.
Okay, do we have a seconder on that? Councillor Trotter. Any other comments? We'll vote on that. All those in favour? Thank you, that's carried. We received one nomination to the Error Water Board membership from Councillor Vanstone. Congratulations.
Good on you, mate.
So, therefore, we appoint the Chief Executive Officer or delegate as the deputy or proxy member. And then we are to decide on the term as well.
Council Secretary, and please, I'm not trying to put words in elected members' mouths, but given the conversation we just had with the previous one, we can get rid of option 1, which is appointment for 12 months for the board member. Option 2 appoints them for a period of 24 months, so 2 years.
I'll make, again, just for consistency, 24-month period.
And then, sorry to interrupt there, Councillor Ripp, whether council chooses to appoint the CEO for that same period of time. That's the next aspect, whether it's 24 months or a lesser period of time.
Well, for consistency, I'll stick it at as 24 months, but obviously it will determine the upcoming recruitment process.
And that can be determined throughout, if once somebody's appointed and there's 24 months for the purposes of this. In my current acting position, I'm more than happy to do so. I've been acting as proxy for some time.
Yeah.
Okay, so seconder, Councillor Core. All those in favour? Thank you, that's carried. Eastern Waste Management Advisory Board. There's a nomination from me as a director and a nomination from Councillor Allinson as the director, the deputy, proxy director. That one, however, I think has a set period of 3 years, so there's no choice.
That is correct. But there is a choice for the deputy term as well, Your Worship. So that can be set by council resolution.
I'm happy to keep for consistency if it's the 3-year term, just to appoint a 3-year term, be consistent between both.
Are you happy with that, Councillor Allinson?
Yeah, I'll second it.
Thank you. All those in favour?
Time to talk rubbish.
Thank you, that's carried.
Okay, good occasion.
Okay, items, identification of items for individual consideration. Does anyone wish to discuss the report, monthly works report in item 16.3.1? 16.3.2, the monthly financial report, November 22. Does anyone wish to discuss the decisions of the Council Assessment Panel of the 12th of December, item 16.3.3? Does anyone wish to discuss the outstanding council resolutions and actions of item 16.5? Okay, can I call for someone to move that resolution to pass all of those? Councillor Allinson, seconded Councillor Nenke. All those in favour? Thank you. There are no strategy reports requiring discussion. There are no policy reports requiring discussion. There's a monthly...
We've gone through all of those.
Oh, sorry, yeah, we do that.
So over 17.
17, no correspondence. Is there any other urgent business?
Just a quick question, based on what we voted on tonight with the committees. When do the meeting times of those be determined? Because I did as part of my nomination state that with those committees I can't meet during business hours, so I can meet after hours. So I just wanted some clarification, given the fact we moved that when we're expecting to find out when they're going to meet.
Yes, so through you, Your Worship. So I believe there's a number of, all the committees have got tentative dates for 2023. Nothing's been finalised yet. And it will be, at this present time, will be a case of the relevant executive officer liaising with the chair of that committee. Yeah. And obviously, as a member of committees now, you'll be included in those relevant correspondences. And look, times for, we've accommodated various times for different members across the board over recent years, so I don't envisage it to being too much of an issue.
Cool. It's just definitely during business hours. I cannot with work.
I would envisage the first week back, administration will be back on decks Monday the 9th of January. each respective board member will hear within that week about when at least an informal gathering of the committee is scheduled.
Cool.
And go from there.
No trouble.
Okay, there are no confidential items, so with that, I declare the meeting closed at 8:05 p.m.
Well done.
Thank you.
Thank you, Your Worship. Thank you, members.